in special partnership with and brought to you by our friends at FLYN. Today on Soulfront, where we explore personal, social, and workforce transformation, we have Ali Stone. Ali is the Northern Alberta partner for Original Joe's Restaurants and has always been drawn to the hospitality industry. Growing up in the industry, it was no surprise when she and her husband Chris took a risk and bought their first restaurant at the age of 25. It grew from 1 to 15 locations. For the past 15 years, Ali has played an instrumental role in building Original Joe's restaurant brand, the team, and their culture. In our conversation today, we'll explore her experiences rediscovering hospitality, how she set out to change the traditional hospitality model by adapting a core message to take care of people, and how that vision became the filter through which all decisions would be made, transforming the culture, their results, and also their engagement. So, without further ado, let's get into the show. Well, Ali, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining us. Before we begin, just a quick introduction of yourself. So for the past 15 years, you've played an integral role in building Original Joe's restaurant brand, the team, the culture in Northern Alberta as one of the founding owners. The hospitality industry, has been known for grueling hours, low pay, unfair labor practices, high turnover, those types of things. In our conversation today, we're going to explore your experiences rediscovering hospitality, like how you set out to change the traditional hospitality model by adopting that core purpose to take care of people. How your company grew from 1 to 15 locations, how that take care of people vision became the filter through which all your business decisions are made, and how it's transformed your culture, your results, your engagement. So Ali, just thanks so much for being a part of the show.
Thank you, Scott. I'm so excited to be here. I feel, I love what you're doing too. I just want to take a moment to say that. When I learned about Soulfront and your podcast here, I was super inspired, and some people I know have been on, and it's been a great adventure getting to listen and watch and be a part of this as well. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Ali. Yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
To start, I was hoping that we could define what hospitality means to you. I know your stores use that acronym HEARTS, the acronym of honesty, empathy, always welcoming, remarkable consistency, taking care of community and safety. That's one way to kind of frame your culture. Is this what you mean by hospitality? Can you talk a little bit about it?
Well, I would say it's definitely part of it. So it's the values that our company espouses to. So this is what we aim to achieve every day. But I think if you're talking about hospitality in general, I'm finding it very interesting the longer I'm in it that it's so expansive, but it's so simple. It's really about caring for other people and truly really wanting to take care of people, right? So I think I attribute it to if it's somebody's in your home, right? Hospitality, you would never welcome somebody into your home and not offer them a drink when they came in or give them somewhere to put their coat down, and so I often think that feeling that you get when you're in the home of somebody you know and care about, hospitality should transcend that into industry and business. And when it does, it's just such a beautiful thing. So it's kind of how I like to see it. It's like this feeling of home.
Yeah. No, I love that. I mentioned in our intro that, the restaurant and the hospitality industry, are known for different things like the grueling hours, low pay, unfair work practices, high turnover, and even sexual harassment in some cases. I know that you think very differently from that. And when did you personally recognize that the industry needed to be different? It needed to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was my own experience, right? So growing up in the industry, I often say I was a bit of a misfit. I didn't know what I wanted to do with myself. So I kind of just found myself in the hospitality industry. I didn't go seeking it. It wasn't this thing that I was like, I need to be here. But when I did find myself there, I felt completely at home. And it was really interesting how sometimes in life when you just find something and it clicks and you're like, ah, this is amazing. But my first experiences in the industry weren't good. I remember working places where I would have to fight to actually get paid for the hours that I worked, like crazy things like that. Like I would get my paycheck and I'd be like, well, wait a minute, and you're young and you don't really know how to navigate all of this, and you start to think that this is normal. And I remember I felt that way for a long time, like this is just the way it is. And as I grew and I started to become a leader in the industry, I realized that there was an opportunity to make a shift. So I just went for it. To be honest, when my husband and I got our first partnership deal in the first Original Joe's, we just said right off the hop we weren't doing it. So we were going to do everything we could to shift everything. We had a really good education in learning what we didn't want. So when we had the opportunity to lead other people, we took all of those things that we didn't like and we turned them upside down and did everything we could to shift that perspective. And it took a lot of work because honestly, it had been happening for so long to so many people in the industry. It became almost norm or standard. And so it hurt culture and people's expectations were low. And so it took a lot of conversation to tell people that we cared and for them to actually believe that we cared. That actually took a long time. So it was an interesting journey through all of that for sure.
You mentioned that when you originally launched Original Joe's, your first location, it was you and your husband Chris Stone. And Chris is a pretty impressive guy. I think he's run like 5 major world marathons.
Yeah, he's very highly competitive. So at one point I would say he was in the top 3 elite runners in Edmonton. And yeah, so I mean, we've been to Boston 7 times and you have to qualify for Boston, and he runs almost a 2-hour and 30-minute marathon. So he's pretty intense. He's very impressive. And he's also a very impressive leader. So, I mean, yeah, it's been great. It's been great having him as a husband. I'm very lucky.
Well, like in a recent podcast of yours, Chris, and you were reminiscing about your adventures with Original Joe's, the Heart Cart, which is a food truck with 2 rules. Like the one is that you'll never transact $1 from the Heart Cart. And the second thing is you only use the Heart Cart to take care of people who do remarkable things in the community. You have, stories of like feeding teachers, police, like firefighters, like a whole bunch of crazy stuff in the community, which is awesome. The talk was great. It was uplifting. Just a question, like how did the collaboration between you and Chris help shape the culture of OJ's?
Oh, it's interesting because, I very much appreciate his leadership style, but we're actually quite different. So I think that has been really important because we were never afraid to challenge each other and challenge the status quo. If there was something that Chris thought we needed to change about the industry, I would say, well, why can't we take it to this level? And, we would continually challenge each other and keep raising the bar. I think that was pivotal when it came to something like the Heart Cart coming to fruition. So that was, a year's worth of marketing dollars that we decided not to market our businesses. And we decided to put that back into community and back into people that make the world a better place and expect nothing in return. And those ideas don't come without challenge, right? And really, really getting to the root of what it is we're trying to do. So there were many nights of dinner and heavy heated conversation around how our culture was going to shape and how we were going to continue to better take care of people in the organization. This is always a topic.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it in that podcast that Chris had finished a run, and he came back with this idea, this genius idea that he was going to do a food truck, and it was going to be purely for the community. And not only like would he have to, I guess, convince you, but then you'd have to convince the other franchise owners that it was a good plan. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think it speaks to kind of your culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was interesting because we were both so nervous. So he went on this run, this particular morning, and came back and said, "Ali, I have this crazy idea." And you could tell, when somebody gets that idea and you're witness to that, it's a very cool experience. And I could tell he was so excited. And so, okay, tell me all about it. And he tells me, and it's just like silence in our house. And normally we're, what about this? What about this? And I was like, that's the most incredible idea I've ever heard. Like, that is taking everything we've been doing all this time, climbing this hill, and sending a message to the world that this is real for us. Like, this is important, and this is what we want to do. And then I said, what do you think the rest of the team is going to say? It was $100,000. So it wasn't like a small chunk of change we were talking about taking out of the organization. And so I remember I had a lot of anxiety that morning when we went in to have the meeting about it. And it was interesting because we actually had a strategy meeting. So the senior level leaders were all together. So it was like the perfect storm. And we walked in and Chris kind of like proposed this heart cart, which didn't have a name at the time. It was like this ethereal food truck that we were just going to fill people's bellies and hearts with. And, same thing happened. It happened with me, and it was incredible. The room goes silent. And I'm like, I almost have like goosebumps like thinking about it now, because you're not in the presence of something like that very often. Something very amazing is happening. And I remember, people, they were just all just like, yeah, no, like no question. And so that was, I'm not sure if I'm swinging back in the right way on your question, but that was such a huge indicator for us that we had the right team and that we were on the right path, and that it was going to be a really cool journey.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Like, I want to kind of go into just that team building a little bit more. Like, there tends to be this quick cash mindset in the hospitality space. Like, you want to get paid and you want to get out. But, in a way, this might be changing. Like, there's a study that I read where nearly 9 out of 10 millennials would consider taking a pay cut to work at a company where their mission and their values align with their own. And I have a quote from one of your past staff, and they said this. They said, "Some of my fondest OJ's memories include Chris and Ali busting their butts in the kitchen, washing dishes, and bussing tables, working so hard that many of the tables would often say, 'Oh yeah, just the bus boy just came by,' and it was actually you." So they were saying that this was a testament to true leadership, like a down in the trenches, supporting the team by whatever means necessary leadership. Ali, like, how did you turn this quick cash industry mentality into a taking care of people culture, to the point where people might even consider a career?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting, Scott, because they do. So I'm not sure if I've ever mentioned this to you, but in our office, we have a 10-year celebration wall. And so for every team member that hits 10 years, we, get this big poster printed, and they get a gift and do this like little celebration for them. But I have 150 years on that wall right now of tenure, which I'm not sure that any other restaurant in this industry has. Like, I think that's very rare. So I think they have chosen a career, and that speaks volumes. But I think that it's like you said, and being there, being a part of that growth and that grind with them. So that quote, is obviously from days when I was running a restaurant and Chris was running a restaurant. And, as organizations grow, they change, your role changes. But the fact that the piece of that connection never goes away, it's just evolved. So I'm so connected to the people in our organization now, just on a different level and in a different way. So more in a mentorship, development, growth type way. And so I love that. And I think moving into that role has allowed the people in our organization to see that they can continue to grow and be a part of something that wants to grow. And I think that's inspiring for them. And I think going to millennials, I think that helps. They need a why, right? They want to know why we're doing this, where we're going, and how they can join if they're aligned, right? And so I love that about working with millennials. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, like a few more whys. Like I read that you took, a small community 5K fun run and turned it into the third largest fundraiser of all time in the Canadian Cystic Fibrosis Society. You fed and clothed like Edmonton homeless and supported, delivering compassion campaign with Santa, like YEG, to deliver over 12,000 meals. Like you've done a lot in the community. I just wanted to get your thoughts on how you see the hospitality industry being connected to the community, and how you create that link.
It's everything. I feel like hospitality is community. It's connection. It's I had a podcast way back at the start, and one of the team members were just facilitators of human connection, and I was like, bing, that is incredible. That's amazing, right? And so when we connect other human beings and we connect on that level of heart to heart and in a space of empathy, compassion, care, joy, even sadness and sorrow sometimes, you can't fake that. And that builds community. And to me, that's what community is. And that's why I feel community and hospitality are so closely intertwined. So when you talk about you're talking about all these things you've done in the community, and you're saying them like, oh, that's actually quite a bit, but I don't think that normally in my mind. I just kind of keep going with that and keep trying to give back as much as possible. So it's interesting to hear somebody else say it too, which is very cool.
I mean, there's the other side of the business, like where you have different key business and performance metrics. Driving sales, profitability, staying on trend, improving your guest experience, streamlining operations, looking for new opportunities, and then you throw a coronavirus on top of that. It's pretty crazy, especially in the hospitality and in the food and restaurant business. Like, how do you keep centered on that taking care of people culture when you have all these competing needs?
Mm-hmm. It's hard. It's very easy to get caught. I describe it as there's two different ways I think we can lead as leaders. And I think we can either do or we can be. And so when we're doing, we're kind of in those, the tasks, and we're getting the things done. And that's where you kind of lose your center. And when we can, as leaders, we can try to spend more time being, and to me, that's being connected in my heart to why we do this, and waking up every day and saying, okay, I know I have tasks to do today. I get that. But what's one thing I can do today that connects me to our people, to taking care of people, to the community? If I can do one thing every day, that centers me. I'm sure Chris might have a bit of a different response to that, because again, we're just a little bit different leaders, but I really try to be really intentional. So anybody who knows me would have known that intentional was my word of 2020. And it worked really well. I tried to bring a lot of awareness to everything I was doing, and it became so relevant with everything that happened this year that focus and presence was going to have to be key to get through what had happened, right?
But do you ever find that all the pressures put on a value-based culture sometimes mean short-term pain, like for long-term gain? Whether it means laying off people, or whether it means trying to cut back on what you might have done in the past. How do you frame that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. So that's interesting, because people look at our culture and they're like, oh, this is amazing. How did you guys do this? And what's the ROI and what are the key performance indicators? And I'm like, oh, that's so hard to describe sometimes, right? And I think COVID was like the perfect example for me. And it really, and I've only recently come to this realization, but it really hit it home for me. So when COVID-19 happened, we had to shut all of our restaurants down in less than 24 hours notice. So it was March 16th. And the franchise had mandated that we would close end of day March 18th. And we had the call on the 16th, and we kind of sat down and talked and realized that it was just unethical to open on the 17th because it was St. Patrick's Day. We'd be bringing people together in light of everything that was going on. So we made this kind of crazy decision inside our franchise group to close this one day early. And I remember it triggered just this insane onslaught of events. Obviously, we wanted to communicate. We had to lay off 450 people within a matter of hours. And we wanted to communicate that we cared, that we knew this was really crazy and really crappy, but that we were going to do everything we could to make sure we could get through this. So, I would say that 90% of our team were able to get that message directly and not through an email. So our leaders went into just this incredible mode of care and communication and empathy with everybody in our organization. And it was just so remarkable to see. And I remember, after that, we said, we still want to try to figure out how to take care of people. So we paid them for an extra week. And, as an organization for 450 people, that sounds really good. But on an individual basis, it wasn't really enough for us. We were, thinking like this just doesn't cut it. So we ended up feeding all of our teams. So what we did was we would order groceries in every week, and they could come in and they could get food and literally fill their fridge for a week. And so if there was a family of 4, they were all included. If you worked in our organization, you could come and you could get food. And the really interesting thing that happened, Scott, was that it was so much more than food. So the people that came and, we called it a full bellies program, people that came and got this food, yes, they wanted and needed the food, but they spent the entire time connecting with their leader. Like they were in there the whole time, and they could be in and out in 10 minutes. So it was like a safe place to come and connect. And so looking back, those are some of the things that are telling me that this is important. These people will never forget how we took care of them. The leaders will never forget the connections they were able to make with their teams. And we made the right choices because at the end of the day, we've had so little turnover in this. I would say we lost less than 1% of our team in this COVID transition, this kind of rehire, and that we're recovering. We're recovering better than I or any of us had ever projected financially. So I think there's actually now starting to be some really strong indicators in my mind as to how culture can be that long-term game, but there is that short-term pain. It's real, it happens, and you have to navigate that, but it is worth it. I promise.
Ali, just to kind of end our conversation, I wanted to talk about your recent involvement in the David Irvine Leadership Program. It's something new, something that you're really excited about. You're one of the new leadership program consultants and instructors. I'll give a quick breakdown of the sessions. I think you're discussing leadership, culture, leadership presence, the fundamentals of trust, accountability, embracing change, disruption, engaging new talent. I'd like you just to talk a little bit about, what is the program, from your perspective, and what's the leadership philosophy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so David Irvine is, I would call him he calls himself the leader's navigator, but he essentially is, in essence, a facilitator of authentic leadership and understanding what it is like to be who you are as a leader and how that can support you. And when I met David, we both realized that was just so completely connected with both of our philosophies. We'd been on these different paths in life, and then we met each other and we were like, whoa, wait a minute. So it's been this really neat union because I bring this real life experience, this 15 years of experience, and stories and situations, and he brings kind of all this theory and corporate consulting work over the years, and together we've created a program that we've actually just launched, which is basically like an authentic leadership practice masterclass. So it's an online program. Over 3 months, 6 sessions. We actually sold it out. So it's sold out. So we're actually taking a wait list into the new year. So it's interesting because when we can connect with who we truly are, we're so much happier, right? And clearly with everything that's happened this year with COVID and just the uncertainty and the fear and the change, there is a need for this in the world right now. And we need to relearn how to connect and how to recreate community. And that's what David and I are on a mission to do. So yeah, it's going to be a really beautiful experience. I'm super excited for it.
Yeah. Just to wrap up this last question, if you're going to give a message to leaders, on the theme of rediscovering hospitality, what would it be?
That's a good question. I think I would just say that it's always there. Hospitality is within us. I think we all have it. We either turn it on or turn it off, and we connect with it in our hearts. So it comes back more to this being who you are and being comfortable with who you are as a leader, and embracing that and embracing other people for who they are. And to me, that is hospitality. That is bringing people in and making them feel safe and comfortable, and creating a world and an environment, an organization, a company that people can grow and develop and just have this beautiful experience of life. Because let's be honest, we spend most of our life at work. It should be a good experience. It doesn't have to be hard, and you still can be successful. You don't have to put on a front about it.
Yeah. It feeds into that idea that you had for your word of the year, intentionality, really.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
Ali, I just want to thank you so much for taking time today to be on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm very grateful for the conversation. It's very inspiring. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you for your support. Please remember to click subscribe so we can bring you more remarkable interviews with extraordinary leaders.